we've had a kind of clear theme of sea critters um, at the start of this channel. In we've had the sand crab, yeah, the sand crab. Um, I mean, just in things related to the water, sand crab, barrels on ships. Plasma oscillation was completely unrelated in Confraterni's caparota. The pea crab is water. Caliceri can be watery. The Manuka punyax is water. Spirobolus and Spirobolus alterniflorus or alterniflorus. I don't know exactly how that's pronounced, but it tunicates. And then, of course, Legia exotica. Something of a theme of water type things. I think this will be more or less the last one. I also have Age of Sail open here, but it's not so much creatures. So we're almost through. It's, you have one thing come into your mind and suddenly there are 20 Wikipedia articles about that thing. This is crustacean larva, though. I think I've been reading the one on the sand crab, Analoga emeritus or emeritus analoga, I forget. And yeah, just reading about the different life cycles, it kind of was like, crustacean go through some weird different parts of life. Oftentimes, their youth is like half of their whole life. Like once they reach maturity, they're only alive a couple months or a year, while their adolescence is like, or birth to adolescence is like a year or 2 years or something. So wanted to learn more. This is a pretty straight shooting article, it seems. I'll probably have a couple little branches off of it, but otherwise, I tried to keep it pretty straightforward. Pardon me as I mispronounce stuff, but let's get into it. Crustaceans may pass through a number of larval and immature stages between hatching from their eggs and reaching their adult form. Each of the stages is separated by a molt, in which the hard exoskeleton is shed to allow the animal to grow. Molt, ecdysis? Is that the scientific term? Ecdysis is the molting of the cuticle in many invertebrates of the clade Ecdysozoa. Sorry if I mispronounce. Since the cuticle of these animals typically forms a large inelastic exoskeleton, it is shed during growth and a new, larger covering is formed. It's so crazy that, we all came, in the most primal form from, some single-celled organism, but things have branched off so much to have us with this fleshy skin and bones inside to other things that, they have a calcareous, hard exoskeleton. Well, actually, I guess exoskeletons aren't necessarily calcium based, but whatever. You get the point. A hard exoskeleton that when they grow, it just they just squeeze out of it. Like how did that develop? It's so crazy. Anyway, yeah, nature is insane. So, you molt. The larvae of crustaceans often bear little resemblance to the adult, and there are still cases where it is not known what larvae will grow into what adults. That's really cool. This is especially true of crustaceans which live as benthic adults on the seabed. Benthic, yeah, that refers to living on the ground in the water. I think pelagic is floating in the water or swimming. So benthic adults on the seabed, more so than where the larvae are planktonic and thereby easily caught. Many crustacean larvae were not immediately recognized as larvae when they are discovered, and were described as new genera and species. The names of these genera have become generalized to cover specific larval stages across wide groups of crustaceans, such as Zoea and Nauplius. Other terms described forms which Sorry, what? Other terms described forms which are only found in particular groups, such as the glaucotho of hermit crabs, or the phylosoma of slipper lobsters and spiny lobsters. Glockatho of hermit crabs. We know what they look like, but that's a cool looking hermit crab. In the Phylosoma, the larval stage of spiny slipper and coral lobsters, and represents one of the most significant characteristics that unify them in the taxon Echelata. Slipper lobsters look like that, which I suppose if you're driving or whatever, it looks like it would camouflage really well as like a rusty piece of iron. It's got like the same quasi rectangular shape, like from bird's eye view of a lobster. Claws look a little reduced in, but it kind of just looks rusty. Yeah, it looks like it would disappear really well. And a spiny lobster, ooh, those are the red ones with the uh with all the arms. I think probably what people usually eat. Um, rock lobster, also known langustas. I know Spanish for lobster is langosta, at least I think. So, life cycle. At its most complete, a crustacean's life cycle begins with an egg, which is usually fertilized, but may instead be produced by parthenogenesis, which is a natural form of asexual reproduction in which growth and development of embryos occur in a gamete, I forget biology, without combining with another gamete. In animals, parthenogenesis means development of an embryo from an unfertilized egg cell. That's cool. This egg hatches into a pre-larva or pre-zoea. Through a series of molts, the young animal then passes through various zoea stages, followed by a megalopa or post-larva. This is followed by metamorphosis into an immature form, which broadly resembles the adult, and after further molts, the adult form is finally reached. Some crustaceans continue to molt as adults, while for others, the development of gonads signifies the final molt. Any organs which are present from the adults do not generally appear uh, in the larvae. Yeah, sorry, I thought I was reading that wrong. Any organs which are absent from the adults do not generally appear in the larvae, although there are a few exceptions, such as a vestige on the fourth paraeopod of the larvae of Lucifer, and other pleopods in certain Anomura and crabs. Let's look at that a little more. I think we looked at paraeopods before. They're like the body segments or legs. I don't remember. Pleopod might be the legs. Wait, these are both linking to the same article. Um, do we have specific? Okay, here we are. Okay, let's just go over decapod anatomy real quick. The decapod, crustaceans such as crab, lobster, shrimp, or prawn. Okay, decapods are crustaceans like that, which a decapod, an order of crustaceans from within the class Malacostraca, includes crabs, lobsters, crayfish, shrimp, prawns. They're mostly scavengers. There are a lot of species. Their body is made up of 20 body segments grouped into two main parts, the cephalothorax and the pleon, or abdomen. Each segment may possess one pair of appendages, although in various groups these may be reduced or missing. They are, from head to tail, the cephalothorax has head with antennules, sometimes referred to as feelers. Is that a weevil? I don't know. As feelers, and are paired appendages used for sensing in arthropods, antennules. Antennae, which is not hyperlinking, there we go, sometimes referred to as feelers. Okay, they link to the same thing, antennules and antenna. Mandibles, which are a pair of mouth parts used either for biting, cutting, or holding food, often simply called jaws. First, maxillae. In arthropods, they are paired structures present on the head as mouth parts, used for tasting and manipulating food. And the second maxillae, if you've ever eaten a blue crab, I can point out what all these are, if you know crabs, you probably can too. Maxillae are mouth parts. Okay, yeah, they're just primary and secondary parts. So again, that head has antennules, antennae, which it seems are kind of the same, mandibles, first maxillae and second maxillae. The head also bears the usually stalked compound eyes, um, which are compound eyes are tiny independent photoreception units with a cornea, lens, and photoreceptor cells. The distal portion of a mandible or maxilla, which has a sensory function, is known as a palp. And here is a picture of a lobster, a prawn rather, and it's got highlighted the antennae. Okay, moving on from the head to the thorax or perion, we have first maxilliped, second, third maxillipeds, the first periopods, second, third, fourth, fifth periopods. So the maxillipeds are appendages, which again there's a first, second, and third maxilliped. Appendages modified to function as mouth parts. Particularly in the less advanced decapods, these can be very similar to the periopods. Periopods are primarily walking legs and are also used for gathering food. They are also the 10 legs from which decapods take their name. Those periopods, which are armed with a claw, chela, we've done that whole article, may be referred to as chelipeds. Okay, periopods, chelipeds, when they're legs. And the maxillipeds are kind of leg-like mouth parts. The movable fingers of a claw are known as dactyls. The periopods bear the sexual organs, which are the third periopod in the female and the fifth periopod in the male. Each appendage from the second maxilla to the fifth periopod also bears a gill. Let me read those last two one more time. The periopods, actually let me go back. The movable fingers of a claw are known as dactyls. The periopods bear the sexual organs, which are the third periopod in the female and the fifth periopod in the male. Each appendage from the second maxilla to the fifth periopod also bears a gill. That's crazy. In the Anomura, hermit crabs and related animals, the fifth pair of periopods is often hidden inside the branchial chamber, where they are used to clean the gills. The cephalothorax is covered by a carapace, which protects the internal organs and the gills. The section of the carapace that projects in front of the eyes is called the rostrum. And here we have a diagram showing the periopods of a prawn, the southern shrimp. Periopods here. Look, we've got little dactyls on the hand. And I guess maybe these are still... Well, let's see if this other image... No, that goes to the carapace. Diagram showing the pleopods of a prawn. So I suppose these have gills on it? That is crazy. I did not realize that's where the gills were. And this is the Penaeus, which I'm guessing is the wangdang, which is also considered a pleopod. This is so fascinating. And I also don't really understand it well. So, great. Moving on, though, we had... That was the cephalothorax. The cephalothorax, again, had the head with the antennae and the mouth parts and maxillae, and the thorax, or perion, with all the legs and mouth parts, and the dactyls, the fingers, and the chelipeds, the claws. Periopods were the walking legs and used for gathering food. And apparently, further down, they also contained the sexual organs. So then, from the cephalothorax, the abdomen and pleon, we have the first, second, third, fourth, and fifth pleopods. Pleopod, not periopod. Yes, I wish that they came up with more distinct names. We also have the uropods, which we've read about that. It uses its locomotion thing. Pleopods, also called swimmerets, are primarily swimming legs and are also used for brooding the eggs, except in prawns. catching food and then swept to the mouth, and can sometimes bear their own gills. In some taxa, the first one or two pairs of pleopods are specialized in the males for fertilization and are also referred to as the gonopods. So that is, in some taxa, the first one or two pairs of the pleopods are specialized in males for fertilization. And gonopods are specialized appendages of various arthropods used in reproduction or egg laying. In males, they facilitate the transfer of sperm from male to female during mating. Man, oh man. There's a folded abdomen of a cooked crab severed from its body, showing its pleopods hiding beneath. Okay, that is not a blue crab for sure. I recognize roughly what that is, but yeah, not a blue crab. The telson, I don't know. At the end of the pleon is the tail fan. That is tail fan, not tail fin. Tail fan, comprising a pair of Biramis uropods, Biramis uropods, and the telson, which bears the anus. Together they are used for steering while swimming and in the charadoid escape reaction. Charadoid escape reaction? In crabs and some other carcinocid decapods, the abdomen is folded under the cephalothorax. Man, this got complicated quick. Biramis uropods, the arthropod leg, in the uropods, in the telson. The telson is the hindmost division of the body of the arthropod. Depending on the definition, telson is either considered to be the final segment of the arthropod body or an additional division that is not a true segment. Okay, this is getting too complicated. Really quick, the charadoid escape reaction, also known as lobstering or tail flipping, refers to the innate escape mechanism in marine and freshwater crustaceans. Okay, so it is, as this GIF describes or shows, it is when these dudes, like lobsters and shrimp and all, kind of shrimp up and squeeze away. That's charadoid escape reaction. Okay, some of this stuff in here was a little too complicated to understand, but I suppose the gist, we have a cephalothorax, head and thorax, and all the different parts there, the antennae and antennules, and the mandibles for eating, and the maxillae are also the inner parts of the mouth. I would assume the thorax has these maxillipeds and periopods, and the periopods have gills on them, but they're also for walking and also gathering food. Claws, the chelipeds, have fingers, dactyls. Yeah. And some of the legs, more or less, are the sexual organs. That was a diversion. So back to crustacean larvae. Any organs which are absent from the adults do not generally appear in the larvae, although there are a few exceptions, such as the vestige of the fourth periopod in the larvae of Lucifer, and some pleopods in certain anomura and crabs. In a more extreme example, whoops, that was a gonad. In a more extreme example, the Saculina and other Rhizocephala have a distinctive nauplius larva with its complex body structure, but the adult form lacks many organs due to extreme adaptation to its parasitic lifestyle. Okay, Saculina, genus of barnacles. Look at that on that crab. It's right here, no doubt. And Rhizocephala, again, a barnacle, parasitic barnacle. Okay, so in a more extreme example, those parasites have distinctive nauplius larva with its complex body structure, but the adult form lacks many organs due to extreme adaptation. Wait, is the crab and the larva one or in the barnacle one thing, or I don't fully understand what's going on there. Yeah. Extreme adaptation to its parasitic lifestyle, which makes me think that maybe they can't live without this parasite? I don't know. That's getting beyond what I'm willing to learn at this moment. Here's some pictures. Nauplius larva, a shrimp. Nauplius, a larva. So that is the beginning of some kind of shrimp. And the Penaeus monodon. Nasty looking fella. Man, now looking at that, it's like these are the lungs, the pleopods. This back here, the rostrum or the uropod. Or no, sorry, rostrum is up here. It's the eye stalk. It's the rostrum. What's the word for back there? I forget. But we have the uropod there, the maxillae and maxillopods, which help walk and eat. The legs have lungs. Man, it's wild stuff. Okay, moving on. History of the study of crustacean larvae. Antoine van Leeuwenhoek was the first person to observe the difference between larval crustaceans and the adults when he watched the eggs of Cyclops hatching in 1699. Which Cyclops is one of the most common genera of freshwater copepods. Cool. Despite him watching it, and other observations over the following decades, there was controversy among scientists about whether or not metamorphosis occurred in crustaceans, with conflicting observations presented based on different species, some of which went through a metamorphosis and some of which did not. In 1828, John von Thomson published a paper on the metamorphosis of the crustacea and on zoea, exposing their singular structure and demonstrating they are not, as has been supposed, a peculiar genus, but the larva of Crustacea. That's a long title. And he apparently had 2 exclamation points in the title. Good, nice. However, his work was not believed due to crayfish not undergoing metamorphosis. This controversy persisted until the 1840s, and the first descriptions of a complete series of larval forms were not published until the 1870s by Sidney Irving Smith on the American lobster in 1873, and George Ossian-Sars on the European lobster in 1875, and Walter Faxon on the shrimp Palaeomondent de something vulgaris in 1879. So I guess what we get from that is some crustaceans go through metamorphosis, others don't. There's been a bit of controversy in the learning of, well, yeah, that's the history of study of crustacean larvae. Here we go. Here's what we're here for, maybe. Larval stages. We have the Nauplius. I'm going to go with Nauplius. The genus name Nauplius was published posthumously by Otto Friedrich Müller in 1785 for animals now known to be the larvae of copepods, which we already briefly mentioned. They're very common freshwater. The Nauplius stage, plural Naupli, is characterized by consisting of only 3 head segments, which are covered by a single carapace. The posterior body, when present, is unsegmented. Each head segment has a pair of appendages, the antennules, antennae, and mandibles. The fact that this too says antennules and antennae separately make me think that there is a difference, which I'm not fond of that. Okay, crustaceans bear 2 pairs of antennae. The pair attached to the first segment of the head are called primary antennae, or antennules. This pair is generally uniramous, but is biramous. I don't know what this means. Uniramous, biramous, but is biramous in crabs and lobsters and remipeds. The pair attached to the second segment are called secondary antennae, or simply antennae. The second antennae are plesiomorphically biramous. Okay, I have to know what biramus means. Biramus is dividing to form two branches. Okay, that's actually kind of what I was imagining. So uniramus would just be one thing. Of appendages of crustacean consisting of one branch undivided. Okay, that's fair enough. The second antennae may be significantly reduced or apparently absent. Okay, so that's how we're going to learn about those antennae right now. So there is a difference then. Oh, crap, there are good pictures here. Primary antennae versus secondary antennae. Of different species. Darn it. This is a whole nother thing. I hate it, but I love it. So there is a difference there. The antennules are the primary antennae, and they're attached to the first segment of the head. The secondary antennae are called antennae. They're attached to the secondary segment of the head. And I imagine they serve different purposes too. Okay, I just heard another clock wind up, warning pin go for the 12 o'clock strike, which means we're about to have a lot of sound. Or at least a long time of sound. Okay, this is getting... I was going to say it's getting more complicated than I expected, but I honestly kind of did expect it to get complicated. And I love it, but this is just going to be a long, long video. So, each in the nauplius here, again, is this first stage of larva. The posterior body, when present, is unsegmented, and each head segment has a pair of appendages, the antennules and antennae, and mandibles, the mouth parts. This larval stage has various life cycles. Some are benthic while others are swimmers. Some are feeding while others are non-feeding. The nauplius is also the stage at which a simple unpaired eye is present. The eye is known for that reason as the naupliar eye, and is often absent in later developmental stages, although it is retained into the adult form in some groups, such as the Notostraca. Some crustacean groups lack this larval type, isopods being one example. Okay, so not all crustacean will have a nauplius phase, or stage rather. Zoea. The genus Zoea was initially described by Louis-Augustin Guillemot Bosc in 1802 for an animal now known to be the larva of a crab. The Zoea stage, only found in members of Malacostraca, is characterized by the use of the thoracic appendages for swimming and a large dorsal spine. And Malacostraca is the pictured fellows there, crabs, lobsters, crayfish, the like. So they only have, only that group has Zoea. Post-larva. The post-larva, or megalopae, also found exclusively in the Malacostraca, is characterized by the use of... Okay, we're going to have a bunch of strikes. This one is quiet, the next one will be loud, so I don't know. I'm probably not going to talk during it, so just skip ahead a couple seconds. I don't know. The post-larva of megalopae are found exclusively in the Malacostraca. Again, so Zoea and post-larva are just in Malacostraca. It is characterized by the use of abdominal appendages, pleopods, for propulsion. The post-larva is usually similar to the adult form, and many names have been erected for this stage in different groups. Like crabs have different names, barnacles, shrimp, hermit crab, they all have different names. And go ahead and skip. Sorry, that's an old clock movement. It takes a while to go through all of its chimes. It's, I think, an old Seth Thomas 89, which I think was made in like the 1920s. Yeah, they're simple more or less, but a little slow. And that one really needs its bushings to be redone. But I am waiting on a broaching set to be able to do that. Anyway, the larvae of crustacean groups. So yeah, I kind of skipped over the post-larva there a little bit because like so many different genus have names specific for their post-larva stage. And I don't care. At least not that much. Oh, here's a picture though. Is it triops close up? So I guess that's the one eye, perhaps. Or no, three eyes? What is triops? Triop. I am not seeing the Nauplius. Let me just triop. Okay, yeah, that's the only place in the article where a triop is mentioned. An adult. Oh, triops is a genus. Okay. Showing okay, no, this is a naupliar eye, a persistent naupliar eye between the two compound eyes. So I'm guessing this should have gone away when it matured into the adult stage, but it didn't. Or maybe it's common for that species. I don't know. Or genus. Cool. Let's move on. Larvae of crustacean groups. The Brachiopoda. In the Brachiopoda, the most basal group of crustaceans, there is no metamorphosis. Instead, the animal grows through a series of molts, with each molt adding various numbers of segments to the body, but without any dramatic changes in form. Every other crustacean group with free larvae shows a metamorphosis, and this difference in the larvae is thought to reflect a fundamental cleavage of the crustaceans. Nice. So interesting. So they don't metamorphosize; they just go through very tiny changes during their molting, and that is the Brachiopoda, which comprises fairy shrimp, clam shrimp, and stuff like that. The Cephalocarida in the Mediterranean, horseshoe shrimp, which it gives the scientific name, horseshoe shrimp. The young experience 15 stages following the nauplius, termed metanaupliar stages, and 2 juvenile stages, with each of the first 6 stages adding 2 trunk segments, and the last 4 segments being added singly. So as we saw, from this, looks like they do have a lot of segments. And that's crazy. They go through a ton of stages and just keep adding more and more on. I guess consistently, which if that is consistent, it's remarkable. Truly. The Remipedia, the larvae of remipeds, are lechithotrophic, consuming egg yolk rather than using external food sources. So I guess oviparous animals are animals that lay their eggs. Okay, I guess lechithotrophic are animals that eat their yolk for food. And remipeds are a class of blind crustaceans. So they consume their egg yolk rather than using external food sources. This characteristic, which is shared with malacostracan groups such as the Decapoda and the Euphalsacea, which are krill, has been used to suggest a link between Remipedia and Malacostraca, which Malacostraca, I believe we've read, is like lobsters and crabs and all. Speaking of which, Malacostraca here for their larvae, and this is again just the larvae of numerous crustacean groups. The Malacostraca have amphipod hatchlings resembling the adults. Young isopod crustaceans hatch directly into the manca stage, which is similar in appearance to the adult, and it is a post-larval juvenile stage. The lack of a free-swimming larval form has led to high rates of endemism in isopods, which I believe means just staying where you were born. Endemism is the state of being a species found in a single defined geographic location. High rates of endemism in isopods, but has also allowed them to colonize the land in the form of woodlice. Hey, we read about woodlice. So the stomatopoda is the next one. Stomatopoda. The larvae of many groups of mantis shrimp are poorly known. In the superfamily Lysosquilloidae, yeah, sure. The larvae hatch as antezoa larvae with 5 pairs of thoracic appendages and develop into erycthis larvae, where the pleopods appear. Those feet begin to appear. In the Squilloidea, a pseudozoa larva develops into an Alema larva. Okay, I'm going to try to vet out some heady stuff here. A single fossil stomatopod larva has been discovered in the Upper Jurassic Solnhofen lithographic limestone. So, basically, they're old. Like 145 million years ago old. Krill, the larva form of krill. The life cycle of krill is relatively well understood, although there are minor variations in detail from species to species. After hatching, the larvae go through several stages called nauplius, pseudometa-nauplius, meta-nauplius, calpitopsis, and Versilia stages. So, yes, several stages, each of which is subdivided into several substages. We have a stage known as the sac spawners. The larvae are reliant on the yolk reserves, so I guess they also eat their egg yolk. They begin to also feed on phytoplankton. In the Versilia stages, segments with pairs of swimmerets are added, beginning on the frontmost segments, and each new pair only becoming functional at the next molt. After the final Versilia stage, the krill resembles the adult. And I don't know which critter this is, but it's 100, that length right there is 100 micrometers. So this guy is very small. And he is emerging backwards from his egg, which I guess is this here. So yeah, they start out a tiny. Decapoda. We've read a bit about the Decapoda. They are the 10 segmented critters like prawn, lobsters, the like. Apart from the prawns of the suborder Dendrobranchiata, all decapod crustaceans brood their eggs on the female's pleopods. This has resulted in development in decapod crustaceans being generally abbreviated. There are at most 9 larval stages in decapods, as in krill, and both decapod naupli and krill naupli often lack mouthparts and survive on nutrients supplied in the egg yolk, which is called lesithotropy. That is relying on nutrients supplied by the egg yolk, because they don't have mouthparts. In species with normal development, eggs are roughly 1% of the size of the adult. In species with abbreviated development, and therefore more yolk in the eggs may reach 1/9 of the adult size. The post-larva of shrimp is called parva, after the species Acanthopyra parva, described by Henry Coutier, but which was later recognized as the larva of another species. In the marine lobsters, there are 3 larval stages, all similar in appearance. Fresh crayfish embryos differ from those of other crustaceans in having 40 ectoteloblast cells, rather than around 19. I'm going to begin skipping a little, but here's a picture of eggs being brooded by a female crayfish. Such large eggs are often indicative of abbreviated development. Look at that. Look at those eggs. Very, very cool. They don't look very happy about life. Okay, let me scan a little bit. These special larvae of slipper lobsters, spiny lobsters, furry lobsters are unlike any other crustacean larva. They are flat and transparent with long with long legs and eyes on long eye stalks. They pass through about 10 stages, undergoing the most profound transformation at a single molt in the Decapoda. Um, cool. The members of traditional infraorder Thasselinidae can be divided into two groups based on larvae. And the split corresponds with the division later confirmed with molecular phylogenetics. So that sounds interesting, but more complicated than I can dive into. In a different group, there's considerable variation in larval stages. Young hatch from eggs in the adult form. From squad lobsters, they pass through 4 or 5 larval stages and have long rostrum on either side of the carapace, and a spine on either side of the carapace. First post-larva closely resembles an adult. Other people have different experiences. Other groups, that is, have different experiences. I'm not seeing anything particularly fascinating. The coconut crab always carries a shell when the immature animal comes ashore, but this is discarded later. All crabs share a similar distinctive larval form. Okay, these spines can be many times longer than the body of the larva. Crabrizoea larvae have been found fossilized in the stomach of early Cretaceous bony fish. Sorry, not Cretaceous, Cretaceous. Okay. So here's a zoea larva of a European lobster. As you can see, it does actually resemble the adult. And that does not so much resemble an adult. That looks like it might resemble an adult, but I honestly don't know. And there is some dude. Cangrejo na praia de Castanheiras Ribeira. Cool. Let's get this over and done with, because I am losing my attention here. Has a lot of body segments. Sorry, I'm trying to find something interesting. Once gonad develops, there are no further molts in the copepoda. Parasitic copepods. Same house. No. Fasciatotica. First described by this dude. Nope. Unimportant. Uninteresting. Okay. Cool. I think that's actually it. Actually it. I say it like this wasn't a very long article. Because I did read the whole appendages of like Decapods, or the body of Decapods article. So whatever. Yeah, that was long. That was long. But some interesting stuff in there just to try to remember a couple cool things. Their legs have gills. The legs have gills. The legs have penises and the like. The legs also help for walking and have in the front they have little claws, the dactyls, and honestly, unfortunately, I think that anatomy part was more interesting than this whole article, at least to me, because the whole article is just kind of very heady and specific about individual stuff, and it seems like it was largely just like trivia facts here about different specific groups of crustaceans having like different number of segments in their larval forms, and like sometimes it can vary, and some go through metamorphosis, some don't. Some eat their egg yolk, some don't. Some have mouths, some don't. Some look like their adult form, some don't. Yeah, that's kind of the takeaway, I feel like, unless you want to memorize every fact ever. Anyway, we done.